Hey everybody, and welcome to another edition of Board Games Hitting My Table. This is where I talk about all of the games that I have played over the last couple of weeks. This episode covering the first half of March 2025. I don't have too many games to talk about because game time has been limited, but I have some good ones. But before I get started on the games, I want to give a shout out to the show's sponsor, Kienda.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer, and if you use the link in the show notes or the QR code, then you can get 5% off your first order. But let's start with Lorenzo Il Magnifico with the first expansion, at least portions of it. I played a 4-player game of Lorenzo, and I think this was the first time I've ever played the game at 4 players. I think 3 is the sweet spot, if I'm honest. This one was a slightly longer game than I was expecting and that's ever been before. But I still adore this dice-driven worker placement game where the strength of your workers is dictated by these dice rolls. And we had a fairly balanced game in terms of what we rolled, some low, some high, throughout the entire game. So nobody was really shortchanged by not having these spare workers. It's really interesting to see how people went for different routes. I think for the first time, I really focused on my yellow engine. And I did that because I got a couple of booster cards that I think I was running my yellow engine at strength +5 or +5 strength, which is a really nice thing to have in your back pocket. So I was always getting the full benefits from my engine there. Different players went for different things. You know, some players really went for the kind of military track. Some went for pushing really far on the religious track and taking some of those excommunications, which can be very punishing. And also, of course, the purple endgame scoring cards. And I think it came down to very small margins in the end. And I think the purple cards just edged it out. And that was because, despite me really investing in my yellow engine, I decided to forsake the middle excommunication, thinking, you know what, let's push higher up in the track rather than going back to the beginning. But that came with an increased cost to buy yellow cards, which I shouldn't have done because I had a really good yellow engine. And then the last round ended up coming up with loads of great yellow cards, which I could not afford to buy because I was excommunicated. So that might just sound like a complete word salad there, but if you know Lorenzo, that might make sense to you. But this is still one of the best engine builders out there. I love this game. I think it is terrific, and it is still a top 10 for me. So that is Lorenzo. Thoroughly enjoyed getting that one back to the table, despite it taking longer than it should have. Speaking of great beige worker placement games, we played a 3-player game of Brussels 1893. You can see this is the original version of the game. This one has since been reprinted with the expansion. And I must say, I have not tried the expansion, so it would be interesting to hear your guys' thoughts. If you can leave a comment to see if that expansion is worth getting or worth hunting down, or just worth getting the new version, because I still do thoroughly enjoy this one too. This one, I always say, is probably one of the cleanest examples of having a lot of things going on in such a streamlined system. You know, a real nice blend of mechanisms with worker placement, area control, kind of engine building, resource management, but it all is really easy to understand by placing your workers on this grid. Always coming with a money fee to that, and the money will contribute towards these columns, which will give you these end of round bonuses that will push you up tracks, increase your yield of points, etc. I think my strategy was mainly based on the buildings here, so I got quite a few buildings down, and I managed to push right to the top of the building track, which I think the other players didn't quite manage to do. I think I still just missed out based on some of the grid coverage by controlling the majorities of these kind of squares that you create. Still, this is a wonderful game. People might be put off by the art style. I personally like it, but for me, this is one of the kind of modern Euro greats because it's just so well refined and so well polished. And every time I play it, I'm just left impressed. So that is Brussels 1893. Let's go on to the last bigger game then, and then we'll go into the fillers. Not like this is a big game, but this is Botanicus, a medium, in fact, I'll say lightweight Euro, maybe venturing on the medium with the expert variants, which I definitely encourage you play from the get-go. This one, kind of a spatial puzzle as you are placing these little plants on your little board, trying to create rows and columns to achieve these goals. You're doing that through this kind of floriferous initiative system. On the main board, you are choosing the action you want. The actions will let you move across these tracks, which will give you kind of new plants, let you water your plants to level them up, and stuff like that. So the game system is very simple, but it's made more difficult because you are restricted by where your worker is on your grid. So you need to make sure you have enough money to move your little gardener around your grid to make sure that you can plant the plants where you want them to be. And it really is an efficiency puzzle because there's only like 2 rounds and there's very little slack and very little kind of room for, or to make mistakes or not be efficient. And that's what I really like about this game, to be honest. Now, while I still don't really have much to critique with this one, I would say maybe the longevity isn't quite there. I've played this one a few times now, and I feel like I've kind of seen everything. Maybe that's just me being tarnished and having my receptors burnt by playing so many games. But still, this one I definitely encourage you to pick up if you want to try something a bit different. Definitely been overlooked and underrated because it's a very well designed game. So that is Botanicus. And let's go on to the fillers now. We're going to start with a 3-player game of Triqueta. This one I always directly compare to the famous Coloretto. Works almost identically, to be honest, except the scoring system is different, where you're drawing these tiles, you're placing them in rows, and then you can either kind of draw a new one or you can kind of take a row essentially on your turn, and you're trying to create sets of 3 of these animals, which all vary in the points they score, but as soon as you go over the 3, they start being worth negative points. And because there is a fixed amount of rounds, you really do have to pace yourself quite carefully and not get too much too soon, but also make sure that you get stuff to score in the first place. So it's a really nice balance there. Lightning fast. I do always play with the Hidden Wolves expansion now, which means that you have these grey tokens that you are kind of forced to keep, but there's a chance of getting these wolves that are very points lucrative. So like this one, it always goes down well. That is Triqueta. Romy Ramy is a game that we've acquired recently. When I first played this one, I did like it. I thought it was very pleasant, this kind of drafting style game and completing contracts. Now I must admit, the more I'm playing this one, the more I am enjoying it, and I thoroughly enjoyed this most recent play. So mechanically, as simple as it gets, you have a display of 6 cards. You could either take all of the same suits or all of the same number, and then you'll try to cash in against these contracts, which might say, here for an example, you want a pair of 4s and also another pair, and so on. But if you pay for that particular requirement with a particular suit of cards, you'll get some bonus points too. So you want to be making sure that you're kind of paying with the right cards, but not waiting too long before that contract changes and somebody beats you to it. And there's also some endgame scoring, which are based on those kind of trios or pairs, straights, etc. This game, again, I played it recently. I was really locked in. I just really want this to do well, and because I think I did quite well, I really enjoyed it. And yeah, this one's definitely growing on me. It feels like a clean evergreen, and if you want a simple, easily approachable card game in your collection that pretty much anybody can play, actually, it's super simple but still engaging, that is Romy Ramy. On to a classic filler. We played a few games of No Thanks just while we were waiting for our 4th player to turn up. We played, in that same little session, we played Splitter as well. Splitter, a game I've not played a lot recently, actually, but I always advocate this little roll and write. It's my kind of preferred weight of roll and write, where it's basically bare bones. You're rolling a pair of dice. You're writing one number on one side of this grid, and you're mirroring the other number on the other side, and you're trying to create groups based on the numbers and their sizes. It's really good fun, extremely punishing actually if you make a mistake, and as the board or the grid gets tighter, you're kind of forced to make those mistakes. I played some more Ratjack. So Ratjack, a game I did speak quite highly of when I first played it and reviewed it. I still really like this game. I say sometimes maybe you're at the mercy of the cards a bit too much, and you can get kind of in this pitfall where you can't quite get the right number. Maybe you keep drawing too high cards and you're not quite sure what to do with them, and it's just a matter of trying to force the other players to go bust. But still, it's a nice game, and it's a good twist and nice little rules and clever mechanisms. A great artwork too. And again, this one, if you like those kind of push your luck, blackjack style games, but with a lot more interaction and some take that, then Rapjack is a good one to look at. And the final game that we played was Flip Town. So I said earlier that I do prefer my roll and write games on the lighter end of the spectrum. Flip Town is definitely a level or two above that. And I did play this game probably only a couple of times before this most recent play, and I have to admit I was I wouldn't even say lukewarm, I was quite cold in it, to be honest. I didn't get a lot of enjoyment from it. But I wanted to give it the benefit of the doubt, give it another shot, get it back to the table and see how my opinion changed, or maybe I wasn't being fair. And I must admit, I still did not enjoy this one. I think it's a little bit too fussy and a bit too fiddly. And I'm not a big fan of this build a poker hand system based on these cards, because you don't know what's going to come out next, and you don't really know what to, to work towards. It's complete speculation. You've got no way of working out what it could be, unless you use these kind of gold nuggets to mitigate it, which kind of does away with the cards in the first place, because you're doing away with that complete suit. So it's very strange how that's such a pivotal part of the game, and can be worth a lot of points. Also, the boards are a bit too small for me. I find the symbology very tiny, and it's not the most comfortable to look at. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm being harsh here. There are some good mechanisms here. I do like how some of the special buildings work, but I'm surprised this one's doing or getting as high plaudits as it is. I think there are so many better roll and writes out there. This one just has kind of simple pushy luck games. It has kind of go down this track, go along a kind of a ratchet track, as well as some good engine building benefits. And that's pretty much what the game entails. It's not terribly advanced, but I find it a little bit too swingy and too luck dependent. Despite being there's some mitigation tools, I don't really feel like it's enough, and it kind of just feels like the game is playing you. But that's Flip Town. Looks lovely, at least the box and that stuff does, but the boards are a little bit too tight, and yeah, I just find it a little bit too fiddly and messy. So that is Flip Town. But that's all the games I've played. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please be sure to hit like and subscribe to the channel. Check out my other content too. But for everybody else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye-bye.